Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today we're taking a look at the 2023 roster for the London Spitfire. Very interesting team a year ago, obviously led by head coach ChrisTFer, who was the coach of the year last year. He did an incredible job with this team. A team that, you know, in 2021, won a single game. It was their last game of the season. Everyone was kind of looking at this team as pretty bad. They brought a lot of those same pieces back with Hottie and Sparker, kind of leading some of that, and Shax. You know, they brought a number of pieces back from that pretty unsuccessful 2021 campaign and managed to find significantly more success in 2022. Going 14-10 overall, finishing in the kind of 6th spot for the season in the Western region, and finding some success in the playoffs, knocking the Gladiators down to the lower bracket and making it into top 6. So a team that didn't have a ton of really high expectations going into the season ended up being one of the best players on the team one of the best teams kind of in terms of consistency. They really started shooting up, especially in that second stage last year. So very interesting team that comes back now with a lot of the same core pieces and looking to build for the future. Let's take a look at this roster. I'm going to start with the officially announced players, and then later I'll cover some of the leaks about this team, or rumors about this team. But the roster as it stands right now is Sparker and Backbone as the DPS line, Hottie as the tank, and Admiral and Landon as the supports. So 5 players, all of whom were on this team last year. They got rid of Khan and Poco and Shaq. So they did trim the roster down, but right now they have 5 players who were on this roster last year. So we know a lot of what this team is and what they've kind of been capable of. And like I said, there's some rumors about who else they're adding to this team to kind of bolster it. But we do know at the very least these 5 are officially on this roster. So let's jump in and let's talk about this roster as we know it and kind of what I think will be this roster's trajectory, assuming these leaks and rumors are true as well. So let's start with the damage duo of Sparker and Backbone. I thought that they were very good last year. Backbone in particular was a very surprising player who did a lot of very good things for this team last year. Very solid flex DPS player. I absolutely expect him to be representing Team UK in the World Cup. And I think he was one of the better pieces for this team in general last season. I thought he had a very good year. He played a lot of May and stuff like that because this team did end up playing quite a bit of like Rhine Rush type comps, and so there definitely were some times where this team felt like they were kind of doing their thing as a team that's kind of doing things kind of differently from the meta. But we also saw Backbone play some hit scan. We saw him play some flex support. He had a really good year. And you pair him with Sparker, who's another player that is very good. A lot of very good things from Sparker during his time in the Overwatch League. He was kind of the hyped up rookie for this team back in 2021. And even though the team didn't find a ton of success in 2021, he definitely was one of the shining spots on that roster and was one of the best parts of this roster as well last season. I like what he does. I think he's a good hit scan player. He's not my favorite hard hit scan player in the league. That is something to consider. But one of the rumors is about a hard hit scan player on this roster. So let's talk about that rumor first, which is that this team is going to round out their DPS line with Lethal. Now, Lethal is like I said, he's a hit scan player. He's a hard hit scan player. He plays the Widow. He plays the Ashe. He plays the Cassidy. He's a hard hit scan player coming out of Turkey. He most recently was playing with Redbirds and Redbird Esports, so in collegiate. But he was officially announced to have left that team in February. So very likely, based on that he is in fact joining the Overwatch League. And like I said, the rumor is that he is the 3rd damage dealer for this team. This rumor is coming from Leak Mafia, so take that as you will. I do think Leak Mafia, generally speaking, is pretty reliable. And usually when Leak Mafia is wrong, they will say that they're wrong. So that's all I'll say about Leak Mafia. Generally speaking, I think that this is one of those rumors that until we see otherwise, it's most likely true. But I think Lethal's a good addition to this team. I think he really rounds out this team and what they can be. I think this is a very solid double hit scan duo with Sparker and Lethal. Throwing Backbone in there, you can cover basically everything you need in that damage rotation. So I do like this team. I do like kind of this trio and what they've put together. I also really like this team seems to want to have players all from different countries, which I think is really cool. That was one of the things I liked about this team last year that they did until they added Khan, and then they kind of ruined that. But that's beside the point. With this trio, I think they cover everything you need to cover. And I think that's the big thing for this team is I like Shaxx a lot as a player. I don't think he provided them what they really needed last year, which I think was they needed someone else to really be that hard hit scan guy to help Sparker in those metas. Because we saw times where, like I said, Backbone would play hit scan. And there were times where I just didn't love the personnel decisions they were making. Like there were times they had Backbone and Shaxx in hit like double hit scan, which I thought was very, very odd. And I think it just came down to kind of what people played and what they were best at and whatnot. So to me, this is a much better trio. You get Lethal, who when you need that hard hit scan, that hard sniper, he is the guy you can rely on. And I think that allows Sparker to play, more of what he's more comfortable on. Yes, he's good on Ashe, but he's also, way more known for his Soldier, for his Sojourn, especially last year. So I like this trio. I like this addition. I think it is going to make this team, in that spot at the very least, better than they were last year, where I think that DPS was sometimes the thing that was the most confusing, though very, very good. It was at times a little bit more confusing than any other role on this team. So like that move, like the way that they're kind of bringing this team together, and I think it's good. I'm glad that they have at least one rookie on this squad because EU is a very, very, very big scene. Lots of players coming to EU, so maybe the World Cup and some of the Pro-Am stuff will be another avenue for some EU players to get onto this team, but as things stand right now, I like what this team has done so far. Moving on over now to the support line for this team. Landon and Admiral return from last year. It's awesome to see this team kind of bring most of their roster back together. I thought that was one of those things that a lot of teams who find kind of middling success, a lot of the time those players kind of get released, but they actually did a very good job at kind of keeping this roster together. And I thought Admiral and Landon were a very, very good support duo last year. Landon in particular in the playoffs, his Kiriko is one of the best Kirikos in the league. In my opinion, he was very, very, very good on the role, so that was really, really nice to see. And he was a good addition, despite the fact he was kind of a last-minute addition for this team going into this regular season, of course, with some of the stuff that they had going on with some personnel. He came in, he played very well. They even brought in Khan, and he still benched Khan, so they trust in Landon, they believe in Landon. Like I said, his Kiriko in the playoffs was really, really good, so I have a lot of faith in him. Admiral, to me, is one of the best main sports out of Europe, and he's been consistently one of the best for several years now, so I was very excited when he got the chance to join this team. I was very happy when he got onto the London Spitfire, and it's good to see him sticking with this team and being a part of this team again, because his main sport play is very, very good, and he is definitely one of the players that I'm most excited to see back this year, because I really enjoyed his play last year. The other rumor for this roster is another support player, and it is someone to replace Khan, and that is Skyrippa, of course, formerly a member of the Vancouver Titans, who I thought he actually played pretty well on the team. This is another rumor coming from Leak Mafia, that he will be on this team. Now, here is a situation where we have a player, unlike Lethal, we haven't seen on the Overwatch League level. We have seen Skyrippa play at the Overwatch League level. We have seen him play in games on an Overwatch League stage. Yes, he played on a Vancouver Titans team that was not very good last year, but I do think, in general, that Skyrippa was pretty good. And I thought that was one of the spots on this roster where, on the Titans last year, I don't think Skyrippa was the problem. I think they had plenty of other problems outside of that. But to me, Skyrippa did play very well. And to me, I think he fits a niche on this team that I like. He's your secondary flex sport most likely, right? If you're in a double flex meta, you're going to have Landon, you're going to have Skyrippa. I imagine Skyrippa is going to be the main guy for, or Landon will be the main guy for most of it. Scarpa will play when they kind of need him. And I think that's really the good place. If it's a double flex meta, Landon will definitely be Kiriko, and then the Ana or the Zen or whatever will mostly be Scarpa. So I do like this trio once again as a support trio. I think it's good. I think it's solid. I think it's strong. Don't really have any complaints. Scarpa is from Romania, so it's another country that isn't represented by anybody else on the team, so that's also good. That's also a positive. Love that. Yeah, no, I like this addition. I think Scarpa looks good for this team. I think he's a good addition. Rounds out the support trio, which I thought was very good last year. So, to me, another really good position for this team to be in. And I think that support is such an important role going forward, especially when we know the next 2 heroes in the game are going to be supports. At least one of those is going to be in the season. Probably by the time Season 1 kicks off. Or not Season 1. The first stage of the season kicks off. Because I think the next hero will come out in stage with Season 4, which should begin in early May or early April. Not early May, early April. So we should have another support hero by the time the season starts. So it's very important that you get support right, especially when there's a very real possibility that in the playoffs there'll be another new support hero. Realistically, if we have a season at the start of April, another season at the start of June, and then another one probably at the start of September or August. So we will most likely have another, or maybe like October, but whatever. There's a very real possibility of another 2 support heroes this season. So very, very important to have a solid support structure. And I think that Landon, Admiral, Scarpa is just that. Finally, last player on this roster is Hottie. He is the solo tank for this team. He's very interesting. I know there's been some mild rumors about Space potentially being on this team, but I don't buy it. There's not really a lot of things that I've seen that make me think it's true. And so I think that they are just rolling with Hottie for next season. And that was what they did most of the time last season. Poco got some playtime, but not a ton. They opted to run a lot of Hottie. Of course, they ran quite a bit of Reinhardt with Hottie last year, but they also ran the ball and the Winston. He also was their Junker Queen player. So they've committed very heavily to Hottie. He was a role star last year. He was a very good player last year. So I don't really have a lot of issue with them doing that. I think it's overall a pretty solid addition and a pretty solid, a pretty solid return, a solid player who had a very good year last year. I think that an off-tank would be nice, but this is a team to me that showed a lot of a willingness to play to their strengths a lot last year, where they know if they're not able to play something very well, they're just going to run what they're good on. And I think in a lot of cases, that can depend on your kind of expectations as a team, because some people are definitely more, or some teams are more kind of, we're going for a championship, right? You can look at the Atlanta Reign, the San Francisco Shock, the Houston Outlaws. Those are teams that look very clearly like they're going specifically to win a title. The Spitfire, the past several years, have basically said, we're not aiming to win a title right now. We're looking to build a foundation for our roster. We're looking to build a European roster. We want to kind of connect to our local community, and we want to build a roster. We're playing the long game, and it may take us a long time to get where we want to be. But the Spitfire already have a title, right? They won the inaugural season, right? They did the thing that so far only 4 organizations have been able to do, and they did it first, right? And so there's all these organizations like Houston, like Atlanta, like Boston that have never won, right? So the Spitfire, I think, have a bit of a place where they don't necessarily have that same organizational desire, but obviously the players do want to win. But I think that's where ChrisTFer did a really good job coaching last year, was kind of setting expectations for this team. So Hottie is the only tank is definitely one of those things that is potentially a sign that this team doesn't want to look to go right for the title now. But I do think that Hottie is very good, and I think they know how to play around Hottie very well, to the point where even if Hottie can't play necessarily what's meta, right? If it's a Diva meta or a Zarya meta or something like that, and he's not the most comfortable on that hero, I think the team knows how to play around his strengths and weaknesses. ChrisTFer knows how to coach around those strengths and weaknesses, and I think we'll see this team adapt the style that they want to play to whatever they need. And I think that's the big key for this team. So In an ideal world, then they would have a second tank player, but they had one last year and they didn't play him a lot. If we get to a point where you need to be able to play Sigma at a really high level, and this team is looking like they are legitimate championship contenders outside of that one spot, then I would expect them to at least trial some players. I don't expect them to make any moves outside of Lethal and Skyrippa, so it'll be interesting to watch this team because I think they're good, right? In a lot of ways, this roster hits the things that I want to see, but it really comes down to talent, right? This is a roster that we all can look at and recognize when it comes to talent, they're probably not at the level of your Shocks and your Outlaws and whatnot, some of your high-end teams. But they are a team that knows what their identity is. They know who they are, what they do. They have very, very good chemistry, which is the big thing that ChrisTFer talked about trying to build with this roster in the past. And I think that is his goal going forward, is to continue to build this roster as a tight-knit group that knows how to play well with each other, that enjoys playing with each other, and that knows, basically what the intricacies of everyone's play is, to the point that their roster just kind of meshes well together. So that's why this team's so interesting to me. I don't necessarily think this is a title contention roster. I think most fans of the London Spitfire probably also wouldn't think this is a title contention roster. I think the organization doesn't view it as a title contention roster, but I don't think that's their goal. I think their goal right now is really to build a team that has strong foundations that they can continue to build upon for years and years and years, and just make matches fun and enjoyable and competitive. Yes, the players would like to win, but I think they're looking at it and saying that we are not at that point yet with this team or as an organization, with our goals as an organization to win the whole thing. But if you told me that this team finished the season like 5th in the West, I honestly would not be surprised. If you told me they finished 5th or 4th, I'd be like, yeah, I could see it, because this team has done a lot of the work to build what I think you need to be successful. Not necessarily having the best talent, but having the best teamwork, coordination, ability to kind of play with each other, which I think is ultimately the single most important thing, right? Really talented teams can beat you when you're a weaker, kind of less coordinated team. Two teams of equal talent, the team that is more coordinated, the team that gets along better as a team, is going to win 9 times out of 10. And I think that's kind of the importance of the London Spitfires. They can take wins off of good teams pretty consistently because they have figured out how to play in a very strong way. And so I'm excited to see how this team goes into next season. I think Lethal and Skyrippa, assuming those additions do come true, will bolster this team, will make them overall a better team. And so I'm excited to see what happens next season. That's really my thoughts on the London Spitfire. Let me know your thoughts on this team in the comments down below. If you agree with me, disagree with me, you think they're better than I think they are, worse than I think they are, whatever it is, let me know down there. And if you enjoyed this video and want more like it in the future, consider liking and subscribing, as your support does help out a bunch with this channel. That is going to be all from me for today. Thank you all once again. I hope you're all staying safe and staying healthy. And until next time, bye-bye.